Okay, I'm sharing my screen through the video. Now I got to share my screen through here. All right. Okay, so we are going to start on the legislative branch today. Can everybody see the slideshow? Yeah. Okay, good. So we're doing the 3 branches of government, and I will just let you know right now that the summative is going to ask you to compare and contrast the different branches and look at the checks and balances. So as we're going through these units, those are the things that you're kind of looking for. What does a legislative branch do? How is that the same or different than what the other branches do? And how can the legislative branch check other branches? So those are just things to be kind of aware of as we start going through this. I'll get that summative up as soon as I can, so that it's something that you know to be looking for as we're going through this unit. So slideshow is in Schoology, and so the assignments for this week were Monday and Tuesday we worked on the summative. Who's here? Can everybody else hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Okay, good. Okay. Okay. So yeah, so the summative is due by the end of the week, so get that into me. If you can get it into me before tomorrow's class, I can take a look at it, and then if you have questions, then I can answer questions. Today, there's a 3-question ed puzzle on gerrymandering, and I'm going to talk about that in class and explain why that's super important. So make sure you do that, because the video is only a couple minutes long too. And then tomorrow there'll be a quiz in Schoology on the House and Senate. I'm not sure if we're going to get through both the House and the Senate. So if we don't, then the quiz won't be due quite yet. But I haven't created that yet. I'll be working on that this afternoon. And then on Friday, on your work day, just make sure you're completing anything that you guys are missing. So some of you are caught up. Some of you are missing a few things. Get your summatives into me, because then you'll be able to see. I mean, maybe you're missing a formative or two, but chances are that's not going to affect your grade that much once you get your summative in. So that's another reason to get that into me. Okay. All right. So, oops, this is in your book. This is just a picture of it. This is just kind of a quick graph of the differences between the Senate and the House. And we're going to go into this more, but the Senate has 2 senators versus the House representation is based on population. So the Senate has 2 members per state, so it's 100 total. The House has 435 members. The Senate has 6-year terms versus the House only has 2. Senators represent the entire state, versus members just represent a district. And we're in the 2nd congressional district here in Wisconsin. Senators must be 30 years old. Reps only need to be 25. And the floor debate rules protect minority party in the Senate, and they favor the majority in the House of Representatives. That's something we're going to be talking about later in this unit. Okay, I'm not going to go through all these. You can look, once again, this is in your book, or you can take a look at the slideshow. But when our founders were looking at creating the Constitution, some of the things that they had to do was look at, what everything should be called, how legislators should be chosen, etc. So there's a little, if you go in your book up on that top right-hand side where you can kind of scroll through some different interactive things, this is in there. So if you want to take a look at that, you can look at what our people, our founding fathers actually did at that convention. Okay, so now the meat and potatoes. So the first section of the unit is on the organization of Congress. And something to just know is that Congress is in the Constitution, and it's outlined in Article 1 of the Constitution. So being that it's Article 1, what do you guys think? Is it pretty important? I'm thinking you're paying attention, so I'm going to go with that. So yeah, it's Article 1 because maybe it doesn't have the most power, but maybe it does have the most power when you're looking at our government. Congress makes the laws. They do a lot of other things, but that's one of the big things that they do. So our founding fathers thought that that was super important, and it's in the first article. We talked about the convention and how we came up with a two-chamber legislature, bicameral. We have the House of Representatives, that's based on population, and the Senate, there's 2 senators for every state. Each house is allowed to write its own rules and procedures, and both houses are needed to pass bills. If a bill passes in one house but not in another, it doesn't pass. We're going to go through that process of writing a bill. And I have an activity I usually do. So if we are in face-to-face, I might do that with the face-to-face students one week and then do it with the other group the next week. And we'll spend 2 weeks on this unit. So we'll be done with this unit, not next week, but the week after that. Okay. You'll hear this on the news, congressional terms and congressional senates. So just something to know that a congressional year, a term begins January and years ending in an odd number. So congressional terms are 2 years. And within each term, there are 2 sessions. A session lasts 1 year and does include breaks for holidays and vacations. It remains in session until its members vote to adjourn. So generally, Congress takes a break in the summertime. It gives Congress people and senators time to go back to their home states, talk to constituents there, and it also gives them some time for vacation because they work pretty hard and they need that vacation. So, but in order to do that, the members must vote on it. So if there's major things going on in the nation, they may not adjourn, which that can be kind of rough too. If they are adjourned, so let's say they're adjourned in the month of August, and there's something major that happens, like a pandemic or a hurricane or something where we need to appropriate money, the president might actually call Congress back for a special session to deal with an issue. And then Congress, all the Congress people have to come back to Washington, D.C. to meet and talk about that. Okay, this was on the chart at the front. So House membership, 25 years old, citizens of the United States for at least 7 years. So you don't have to be a natural born citizen to become a member of the House. You can be born somewhere else, and as long as you become a legal immigrant and become a naturalized citizen, you will be able to run for Congress if you want. You have to be a naturalized citizen for at least 7 years. You have to be a legal resident of the state where you're elected. So we can kind of see that here. We live on the border. Let's say somebody from Illinois wants to run for Congress in Wisconsin. They can't do that. They would actually have to move here and establish legal residency here. Traditionally, people live, their home base is in the district they represent. Like I just mentioned, we're in the 2nd Congressional District in Wisconsin. So they would have to live, and it's pretty big. There's 8 districts. Madison, Janesville, Monroe, like that triangle, that's the 2nd Congressional District. And House representatives serve 2-year terms. So every 2 years, they're up for a re-election. So in this re-election, you'll see that there'll be a congressperson running for U.S. representative in our 2nd Congressional District that we'll have to vote on. And I'll get a hold of a ballot so you guys can see what an official ballot looks like. All right, something really important to understand about the House of Representatives, and I've got some pictures coming to do this. This slide has a whole bunch of vocabulary on it, but it's vocabulary that's pretty important. So every 10 years, there's a census. You can see that. And a census is just a count of the population. The reason Congress does this is reapportionment. So what they do every 10 years is they look at how many people live in each state, and then that determines the number of representatives that they have. And like I said, I think, the slide's not there. I might try and bring that up in just a minute here. State legislators redistrict after reapportionment. So redistricting is setting up new district lines when they're looking at those numbers to make sure that it's fair, that there's equal representatives, across each state and then across the nation. However, one of the huge problems nowadays is gerrymandering. Gerrymandering is drawing a district's boundaries to gain an advantage in elections. So I'm going to show you a picture. So this is a picture. It started in 1812. It's a political cartoon coined the term gerrymander. It shows the electoral districts of Massachusetts drawn like a salamander. The term gerrymander blends the word salamander and the name of governor at the time, Albert Gerry. The term is still used today. So basically what this was saying was, if you kind of look at the map, this one, the lines are pretty straight, but I'm going to, okay, hold on. I got to escape from here for a second. And I'm going to bring up your book, and I want to show you something in there because there's a map that makes gerrymandering pretty clear. And it's done to favor one party or another. It's generally whatever party is in control of a state legislature. And it's not a good thing because it makes voting not fair, truthfully. And you are going to be, where's the map? Here's the map. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see the map. And then what you can do, it's an interactive map. It tells you, whoops, how many seats are in each state. So, and the year that they gained or lost them. So Wisconsin used to have 10 seats. Now we only have 8, and it goes by population. It doesn't necessarily mean that the population of Wisconsin has shrunk. It just means that other states might have more people now. For example, California just keeps growing. They're at 53 representatives now. So it's really an important state in an election because it can really sway one way or another if the president wins or loses. Florida is another one that is consistently gaining seats. I'm thinking New York is actually losing seats because there's less people there than they used to, or there's more people in other states than there are in New York. So just something to note, that the number of people that each state has in Congress can change. And then we're going to look at, like I said, I want to show you that whole gerrymandering. I want to just look at Leslie. Okay. There's this really good map, and I can't seem to find it, that talks about, I apologize, guys, just, I thought I had a picture. I'm just going to bring it up here. The Edpuzzle that I have for you guys today is going to actually show you a little bit about this, but this is one I've used in class before, so I'm going to just make this bigger. Okay, so when you look at the state of Wisconsin, it's not a square, right? But you could kind of cut up the state in grids. Those are little grids, and each of them represents one representative for government. So let's say you went from 2 representatives to 5 representatives. Well, the fair way to break up the districts would be like this, like the second one here. This would be the fair way to district a state so that Republicans and Democrats and independents are all represented equally. But that's not what happens. States will do something that looks like this. And what this does is, even though there's less red districts, like number of people in the state, when it's districted like this, you can see there's still 5 districts, but 3 of them are majority red and only 2 of them are majority blue. So then what happens is the red, even though there's less people, still wins. And this happened, if you looked at our election in 2016, when our current president went against Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton actually won the popular vote. She had more votes for the presidency than did President Trump. But because of gerrymandering and the way places are district, she lost. And I could go on and on about that if we were in class, but I don't agree with it. I think our national elections, when we vote for president, should be decided by the number of votes, not by how many, by the Electoral College and the fact that Wisconsin only has eight votes overall. But that's a discussion for face-to-face maybe someday. So back to our screen then. We'll move on to the Senate. And this is just overview, guys. So we're going to go into the House and the Senate much more. So Senate, you have to be 30 years old, have to be a naturalized citizen for at least 9 years, legal resident of the state that elects you. Senators, all voters of each state will vote for a senator when they're running for election. This year, we don't have a senator running for election. Senators hold 6-year terms. So it comes up on 2 out of 3 election cycles. And this just happens to be the one it doesn't come up in. Okay, salaries. So how much do our congresspeople make? You see some of the salaries of our congresspeople, and you're like, and there's the whole thing with Trump, the Trump tax thing that just came out. But Congress members make $174,000 a year. That's what they make from working in Congress. They do get some benefits like postage for anything that they send out for official business. They get insurance and a 401k. They do get allowances to pay their staff to take trips back to their home states because they do have to go. So let's say you work in Washington, D.C., but your home state is Wisconsin. You still have to be able to go back and work with the people in Wisconsin on some issues too. They get telephones, newsletters, etc. They do get a tax deduction because they have to keep a place in Washington, D.C. to live as well as a place in their home state to live. So they get a little bit of a deduction for that. Finally, and a really important thing, is the 27th Amendment was the last amendment to have been passed. Congress voted on the fact that they cannot give themselves a raise. So if Congress votes to up the salaries of the people in Congress, that does not go into effect until the next election. And the reason this is important is because they could vote to say Congress members all make $1 million a year. And they could start collecting on that, and there would be nobody that could really say anything. So they made it after the next election because then they can propose the bill, pass the salaries. But if the American people don't agree with it, they're not going to get their jobs back after the next election. So it was, I think, an important thing to do. Okay, here's some more privileges that Congress have. When attending Congress or on their way to or from Congress, they can't be arrested in all cases except treason, felony, and breach of peace. So when you have this word felony in here, it includes both things that somebody would be arrested for. But it's just an interesting little privilege that the Congress has. Members cannot be sued for anything they say on the House or Senate floor. So whatever they say is basically sacred, and they can't get in trouble for it. However, if they say that any of those same things, and let's say they lied about something or whatever, they can get in trouble outside of Congress. Incumbents are current members of Congress, may judge qualifications of new members, and may check their constitutional requirements. So let's say in this election, somebody gets elected to the Senate, and somebody believed that they were lying about their age, and they're not actually 30, they're only 27 years old. The Senate could actually look into that and make sure that their birth certificate and all of that is legitimate. Chances are most of the time you're not going to get those checks because those things are vetted ahead of time, but it's something that Congress can do. And finally, both houses may censure members or take a vote of formal disapproval of a member's action. Now, this actually happened in Wisconsin on the state level. One of our state representatives, so state representatives work here at the Capitol in Madison, not the Capitol in DC, but some of the rules are the same. Anyway, a state representative from Wisconsin Assembly got, I don't know, they were on they had a DUI already and then got arrested for a second or a third one. So basically our state assembly got together and said, you need to step down. So that's a type of censure where they say, you're not doing your job, or you did something that's so bad that you shouldn't have your job. So we're going to ask you to leave. And that's something that our U.S. Congress can do also. Membership. So who's in Congress? Who runs Congress? Nearly half of everybody that is in Congress right now are lawyers, and that's generally been the case. Historically, senators and representatives have been white, middle-aged males, and that's changing a little bit, and I have some slides to show you about that. Until 2012, more than 90% of those elected were incumbents, meaning 90% of the people that were elected had been there the previous session. We talked about the membership before, and then just something to know is that there are 5 delegates in the House of Representatives from the District of Columbia, Guam, and our other territories. They can't vote, but they can be there, and they might be parts of different committees. Okay, so this is just looking at that word incumbents. It's showing that House incumbents and Senate incumbents reelected as a percentage of those seeking reelection. So 60% is right here. So in most cases, the people that are elected to Congress when they go through an election are people that are already there. People vote for people that they know. So unless somebody retires, chances are if you're an incumbent, you have a pretty good chance of winning again. And then this is looking at the makeup of Congress when you're looking at women, African Americans, and Hispanic or Latinos in Congress. So women is the blue line. And you can see the number of women and minorities has increased greatly. The red is African Americans, and the yellow is Hispanic Latino Americans. So, you know, the numbers are starting to match a little bit better about the proportion of people that they represent. So certainly not everything, because total there's 535 members of Congress, and still only 100 of them are women, but it's a lot better than it was mid-century when there was only about 10 women that were in Congress. So know that things change, and I know for those of you that are thinking about voting and you think it's important that there are people of color and minorities and women in Congress, then go out and vote for them if they, you know, they follow your political views. Okay. So if we were in class, I would have you guys do this as a class activity. I would have you go online and find Ron Johnson and Tammy Baldwin are our senators. Mark Pocan is our U.S. representative, and just see what they have out there for social media. Social media has really changed the face of elections. People don't always get their information from credible sources anymore, unfortunately. When you look at all the junk that's out there on Facebook and Twitter, and you have to question what's true and what's not true. So if you're trying to get information about who's running for Congress, or who's running in elections, don't look at social media. Go to actual news sources. Go to the New York Times. Go to Fox News. Go to CNN. They have different views, but generally what is being said on those stations is truthful. So it's just something to think about. Okay. Any questions? I'm going to stop sharing the slideshow for a minute. Oh, hi, everybody. All right, I'm going to stop